So, so join us today. As you see, we have Eric Desmarais, who is from CLS Farms, and they are the breeders of El Dorado hops. So they launched El Dorado in 2010 from their hop breeding program. And CLS Farms is a fifth generation hop and fruit farm from the Yakima Valley. Is that correct? The Yakima Valley, Moxie?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're located in the Yakima Valley. The Yakima Valley has a couple different sub-growing districts. We're in all three of them. So there's a district called the Lower Valley. We grow hops in the Lower Valley. We grow hops in the Moxie Valley, which is a sub-district, and we also grow hops in the Wenas Valley, which is a little slightly different area, but all within 30 geographical miles of each other. So,
and right, and we're also joined by Alexandra Nowell, who is the brewmaster and head of brewery operations at Weavers Brewing Company, and she's got extensive experience with using El Dorado hops, I believe.
I do. I know that I was an early adopter of it as a variety.
Great. We're going to hear all about that.
Nearly 10 years ago. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Eric will be talking about the developments and the access you can get to the hops, and Alexandra will be talking about the use of the hops and how you can use it in your brews, and also sharing experiences that they've had at Three Weavers in using El Dorado hops. So they'll be presenting for about 25 minutes, after which we will have a question and answer session for you for Eric and Alexandra to answer all your questions. So, Eric, we'll start with you on the developments of the El Dorado hops.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of background about our farm. You know, we're a very traditional farm in the Yakima Valley of the United States, and that's where the majority of hops are grown in the United States. And so we are fifth generation. My oldest daughter is getting her MBA, and we have two younger daughters that are in college as well. So, you know, the intent is for this to move on to the next generations. And so most hop farms in the Yakima Valley are multi-generational and want to keep that growing. So CLS Farms, we've been around for a long time, but it's owned by myself and my wife Shelley, and so we would be classified, if you could classify us, we would be a very independent hop grower. So we grow hops for basically every entity in the world. And so any variety that you're growing, we're most, or a brewer's buying, we're most likely growing. And so we're definitely a shrinking bunch, but we are firmly, as Alex will attest to, we are a firmly independent hop growers. So, you know, we currently grow 13 different varieties. We sell to all the major hop dealers. We also have a decent amount of direct business that we do, and the wall behind us shows a lot of that. So we work with some brewers in a direct manner. We've also grown over the years to understand that releasing our own varieties and bringing new varieties to the landscape is important. So our primary variety is El Dorado. We focus a lot on the Neo-Mexicanus chain of varieties, which a lot of brewers don't know about, but it's actually a whole different classified species of hops. And so El Dorado has a lot of Neo-Mexicanus in its background as well. And so three of the varieties that we've come out, that proprietary varieties that we grow and develop and work with around the world are El Dorado, Zap, and Medusa. And so we're here to talk about El Dorado. That's our primary one, and it's the one that has the most influence on the market right now. So, you know, we do work with all major outlets. You know, one of the big things, I'm going to peel back to this a couple times during this message, is that one of the unique aspects of El Dorado is that we make it widely available to the entire supply chain, and that goes direct to brewer from all the way to all the major hop brokers have full access to it. So a little bit different proprietary variety than other proprietaries in that manner. Things can be more restricted in certain varieties, and so we'll we're going to touch on that a little bit. So El Dorado was released in 2010. We had the variety for a while before, but with the explosion of craft, released in 2010. We didn't quite know what we had at the time, but craft brewers are really great, and Alex will attune to this later. Is they can bring out the best, and so we knew we had something, and so we talk a lot about a dual purpose. It's high alpha, high alpha acid, and also high oil. And so what we've really worked on in the last decade is to really bring out its aroma profile that that can be very powerful. And a lot of that is picking window and how you handle the hop. And so we do a lot of things at CLS that are very quality orientated. Every field is looked at in its own unique time frame of when it's ripe. So we spend a lot of time trying to get it pinned into just exact right world. So what we're really looking for aroma wise with El Dorado is really that stone fruit, pear, watermelon, hard candy. Those are the kind of characteristics we're looking for. It really brings out this kind of a sweetness aspect of it. So, it takes a lot of time for new hop varieties. We released it in 2010. It had good success for a couple, right off the bat, because early adoption is always big with craft brewers, but it takes time to learn how to brew with it. And what I can tell you is Alex was right there at the beginning of all this, and she learned how to brew with it. And so it just takes time. And so here we are 10 years later, and we've learned a lot from it. And so really, I'll kind of get to the last bullet point. The 2016 was the turning point for it. It really lends itself well to the hazy world. And so when that style took off, it definitely took off. So a lot of great beers it's in. El Dorado's found itself. The really wonderful thing, El Dorado has found itself in year-round beers. And a lot of thanks to Alex with Expatriate. That's been a year-round beer for them early on. Stone Delicious IPA, Sierra Nevada hazy little thing. And so El Dorado has found its place amongst year-round beers that are reproducible and profit generators for craft brewers. And that's what we want it to be. That's really what we want, and we want it to be available. So El Dorado has from a growing perspective, it's got a lot of really great traits to it. It tends to be a high yielding variety. So high yielding varieties result in a much cleaner supply chain, because brewers get the hops for cheaper. Growers, middlemen who handle the hops, who need margin as well and are important, they get their margin, and growers can get a little better margin. So if your hop can produce more pounds per acre, I know it's a little bit of a climate change hot button issue, but the more efficient we can be at agriculture, the better it is for everybody in the chain. And so El Dorado is a high yielding hop variety, which is very helpful. And so it has a wide harvest window, which is helpful for growers as well. And different aromas can come out. And so one thing we've learned from craft brewers is everybody has their vision of in their viewpoint of what's important on their aroma side. And so we get different aromas at different times. So that's great. And so other varieties can go kind of onion garlic later on in their maturity cycle. So El Dorado doesn't do that. So we have some advantages there, but there are some challenges to it. It can be, we can see some yield differences, some wide differences between growers. We can see some extremely high yields, and we can see some extremely lower yields. And so we have a very robust program internally at CLS to get all of our partner growers to grow it in a manner that we think they can get the highest yield, because in addition to quality, we push quality very, 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 we have a lot of quality standards in our grower licensing agreement, but as well, we understand that yield is very important, and it ends up translating into a better price point for all the parts of the chain of it. So we definitely have some challenges with a little bit of there can be some what we call root rot. So I just, I don't know how deep everybody wants to get into that kind of thing. So we have to manage the water really closely in it. It's moderately susceptible to powdery mildew, so we have to manage that as well. And it's a little finicky. It is a little finicky. It can be very high yielding, but if not treated right, it can be very average to below, average yields. And so we work really, really closely with our grower base to push that metric up. So we could probably move on to the next one. So for us, we've learned over time, it's life's an evolution and learning about, quality. Everybody says quality, but quality takes a lot of work. And some of the things that we do that are not widely adopted, but we dry at a lower temperature. We have high fan speeds. We really work at getting into the right moisture matrix with El Dorado, and we really, really work on the harvest window to make sure we're in the right area of where it belongs, because hops harvested too early can definitely be flat and not quite what craft brewers are looking for. And so we have, we learned early on with El Dorado, we needed a wide grower base because we think that's safer. That's a risk matrix that we think is safer for craft brewers, instead of just us growing it. So we have 23 licensed growers. So it's really broad over all of the growing districts. And so that takes that risk matrix and broadens it way out. And so we think, what we want out of El Dorado is we want it to be a base variety. We want it to be a variety that brewers can count on. And so that requires us giving up and having licensed growers. So we have 23 licensed growers, and so, which is a big number. And so over four different states in the United States. And then the other really big metric we do is we have 18 licensed dealers. And that's everything from the largest top dealer down to the smallest top dealer. And so there's no restrictions. There's no restrictions on any brewer to be able to access it. And so all you have to do is ask for it. And so we don't try and pin it into certain distributors. And so we work really, really hard to make it accessible and available. And so kind of one of the messages I always want everybody to take away is we call it kind of a free market proprietary. So it's widely available, and then Alex can attest to this. I mean, it's not a highly constrained, highly controlled, and so it's available. It's available. It's going to be available to all the brewers that are listening to this podcast. It's available, and you just have to ask and get there. So we want El Dorado to grow. That's what we want to do. We want it to be available and to grow. And in this last graphic says, and you can see it didn't even register on the graphic. It didn't even register till 2018, but it steadily moved up. And so we think a lot of that has to do with its quality, but plus also its availability, its dual purpose action. And so, we're at number 7, and we think El Dorado can be a top 5 is where we'd like to get with that variety. And we think we know what it takes to get it there. So I'm going to hand it off to Alex, I think, at this point, and we're going to stop talking about growing it and talking about what really matters more is how to brew with it. Because at the end of the day, all craft brewers are going to see thousands of new hop varieties. You're going to have all kinds of new hop varieties putting forth in front of you, but it's hop varieties that you can scale with, grow with, brew with, and make good beer with. And at the end of the day, it's the brewers that count, not us hop growers. It's brewers like Alex that count. So
thank you, Eric. So yeah, anyway, it was a really great introduction because I think the grower is an incredibly important part of the hop, because without the grower, there's no hop. However, when it comes to El Dorado, I used it for the first time, I believe it was back in 2012. And actually myself and former Stone Brewing Company brewmaster Mitch Steele used it for the first time at the same time in a collaboration that our breweries did together. So really interested in seeing what this new hop was all about. So, first and foremost with El Dorado, I was enticed by its exceptional aromatic character. I mean, it hits so many different notes. It hits tropical notes of pineapple and mango, but then you get a lot of stone fruit in there. We see a ton of peach and apricot, how we use it, and also cherry in some of the later selected lots of El Dorado. But then, there's this really great citrusy characteristic to it that, Eric had mentioned, sweet. And it's something that I call candied lemon, or some sort of candied citrus peel, where every beer that we use El Dorado in always finishes with this really nice, sweet, citrusy character, no matter what other hop has been used in it, because we're not doing a lot of El Dorado single hop. We use it in coordination with a ton of other things. So for us, it shines as a whirlpool and a dry hop addition. We do utilize it in other parts as well. Like I had mentioned, it plays well with other varieties. I've referred to it as the glue that binds together a lot of our hop bills. It tends to accentuate and fill in the gaps where some of the more aggressive, like monosyllabic hop varieties sort of forget to kind of get with the program, or this like sort of balanced characteristic of hoppiness. But it's bright, it's tropical, it's fruity. We just love working with this hop. And I also do want to mention the high alpha acid content, because we are an IPA focused brewery in California. I like to say that I am a born and raised California brewer. We make a lot of IPA, and in these sort of newer age West Coast and hazy styles, there's not a lot of upfront bittering additions, but you do need bitterness in the beer to carry forward some sort of semblance of balance with the amount of sweetness created by the malt. So we do gain a lot of bittering from our late hop additions, especially in the whirlpool. And when utilizing El Dorado, which is typically in the 14 to 15% alpha acid range, not only are you able to capture aroma and flavor in your later hop additions, you can also get an efficient bittering property out of the hop, and it always comes across as smooth and balanced. And then, looking at the year-to-year consistency of El Dorado as a hop, yes, we are fortunate to be able to go to the farm and select with our brokers on what I prefer in the variety, and it really depends on the beer it's going into. But year after year, we are always very happy with the quality of El Dorado, no matter which broker we buy it from. And we are purchasing El Dorado from more than one location. We do diversify our hop supply chain. We're not buying everything. We don't put all of our eggs into one basket. So no matter where the hop comes from, I'm always happy with it. So it's a hop with a really high oil content. We'll get into the spider chart on the next slide, but just to see where it breaks down, very high in myrcene, like a lot of hops. It's a very hoppy hop, which is what I like to think of this as. I'd love to see, anything that strikes this high in myrcene, and you get that really awesome citrusy characteristic, because these are predominantly going into the dry hop. You're capturing a lot of these awesome terpenes right into the beer. Not to stay too long on this, we can make this available to you. It's interesting to see the full breakdown of the oils, but El Dorado just has a bright aroma that presents itself in so many different ways. We do look at it specifically when I select it for its candied lemon in the aroma, and the more I use it, the more I lean towards the stone fruit and cherry. But since the early days of selecting El Dorado, I would always go for it. And Eric can tell you, I like mid to late harvest El Dorado, when the aroma starts to get really concentrated and intense, and it never does go onion and garlic like most other hop varieties do when they hang for too long. But you can see that this is a really nice selection of fruit character, and it always comes through in the beer, whether you're using it in the hot side or in the dry hop. So we'll do just an evaluation of 3 of our IPAs. One of these beers, Expatriate, is our flagship that Eric had mentioned. It's our flagship IPA. We've been brewing it since day one. We're going into our 7th year of operation as a brewery, and it's still our #1 selling beer. And, you know, when I was first developing this recipe, I always look at hops that I'm the most excited about. And it's Eldorado's been on that list for so long, and I knew that I needed to find a home for it in one of our beers. And I'm really happy that Expatriate has taken off the way that it has. We've also released a hazy version of it, which is a similar recipe to Expatriate, just employing sort of your hazy grist with lots of raw wheat and things like that, and a different yeast strain. And then Lazy Lasers, which is a one-off hazy IPA that just kind of goes a little ridiculous in terms of hopping, but I think there's a home for that in everyone's tasting room, not necessarily in the commercial market, because that is not a commercially viable beer. Not because of the Eldorado, it's because it's got 5 pounds per barrel in the dry hop. But I digress. Let's move on to Expatriate. This is our flagship, and it utilizes Eldorado throughout the entire process. It gets it in the late kettle as a flavoring addition. We go heavy in the whirlpool, and then it's in the dry hop. So if you see, the total usage rate is 1 pound per barrel in the entire recipe, 10% of our kettle hop, but it is 1/3 of the dry hop. And it does go in conjunction with Mosaic and Simcoe, which are 2 fairly aggressive hops. But if you look at the sensory impressions, it's so well balanced by the use of Eldorado in the beer. Actually, I should step back a second and talk about how we're using the hops themselves in our process. Our whirlpool is done just below boiling temperature. We're not really dropping the temperature down to 180 like a lot of people are doing right now in the US. So it's a true whirlpool hop addition after the flame goes out in the kettle. And then when it comes to dry hopping, we dry hop our beers 1 degree Plato before terminal to take advantage of yeast activity, because I think that these hops all benefit from some form of biotransformation. So it is going into the beer during active fermentation, and you are seeing a little bit of transition occurring with the terpenes and the oils and the hop during the final stages of the fermentation. Further, we allow the hops to sit on fermentation temperature beer for 6 to 7 days. We do watch VDK and acetaldehyde production in our beers and reduction. That's when we make the final determination of when to bring the beer down to 0 degrees, but for the most part, it's 6 to 7 days. So it does get a decent amount of residency time on top of the hop. And we do move the beer around and the hops in the tank, but it's all on yeast, so the yeast is still present. Anyway, back to Expatriate. The sensory impressions that we get, mango, pineapple, pine, candied lemon, and strawberry. The pineapple and candied lemon, I think, are really coming from the Eldorado, because we select our Simcoe for citrus. It was actually grapefruit and mango. The grapefruit doesn't really come through, I think, because the Mosaic pops in there, but our Mosaic is very pine and berry forward. So you see overall, if you look at like how cohesive it is, Eldorado's found a really good home in Expatriate. And, you know, despite having 2 other aggressive hops like Mosaic and Simcoe, you can always pick out that candied lemon character in the finish of Expatriate. Moving on to the hazy version of Expatriate, where we keep the hops the same. We are using a more expressive yeast variety in this, or, you know, yeast strain. It's London 3, which is kind of, I guess, the standard now for these sorts of IPAs. But Eldorado makes up 100% of our kettle hopping. So it's 2.2 pounds per barrel. It's about 1 pound per barrel in the kettle, in the whirlpool, where you're capturing a ton of really amazing, bright, it's really the stone fruit and tropical fruit that you're getting out of the kettle edition, and then 30% of the dry hopping along with Mosaic and Simcoe. But you can see between Expatriate and Juicy Expat the similarities that occur with Eldorado being used in conjunction with those other 2 varieties. The lemon does fall out quite a bit, and I think that's because of the ester production of the yeast variety, the yeast itself. But it is bringing out more of these peach, pear, orange, and pineapple. I love this beer. I was a late adopter to hazy beer because they're not my favorite, but as Expatriate is my #1. But I think that if I had to have a #2 that went in line with Expatriate, it would be Juicy Expat, because it just really allows the hops to shine in the manner in which it's used. And now on to a pretty big beer. The 2 pounds per barrel is the 2 pounds of El Dorado per barrel. That's not including all the other hops we're using in it, but it is 50% of the kettle hopping, which all goes in the whirlpool, and then 1/3 of the dry hopping. So it is, when you look at it being used in conjunction with Motueka, Citra, and Strata, Citra and Strata are fairly aggressive, Strata being the most aggressive and used in the least amount in this. It's a new American proprietary variety. The El Dorado here, you get the peach, watermelon, pineapple, and lemon, and it's really amazing working together with those other varieties that are considered somewhat, I don't know, Strata's a little bit of a bully, but it plays so well with the Citra in this beer that I couldn't really envision it without the peach and the watermelon. When we do sensory on this, and we use Draft Lab in our sensory program, it's really amazing software for tracking sensory analysis of all of your beers. If you haven't looked into it, please do. It changed our entire sensory program and how we share information amongst each other and how we track our beers over time. But peach and watermelon were the #1 impressions of this. And without the El Dorado, there would have been no watermelon, because none of those other varieties are known for any of their melon characteristics. And I just think when I'm able to find a hop variety that throws out such a unique character, it's something that you really kind of have to hold on to and play around with. We will be doing a single hop exploration of El Dorado soon, because believe it or not, it's something I've never done, despite utilizing it as a hop. It's a major hop in our routine for so many years. So I'm very excited, and maybe on one of our upcoming webinars or presentations, we can talk a little bit more about 100% El Dorado and a 3-pound per barrel beer. But I think that really that's all for a study of three Weavers IPAs. It I don't know. I really I think I'm preaching to the choir to some degree when I talk about how awesome it is to utilize El Dorado as a big part of your hopping program. But yeah, if you haven't tried it, I definitely highly recommend giving it a shot. If you have any questions, please reach out to CLS, reach out to myself. You can stalk El Dorado Hops and CLS Farms on Instagram, on social media, see what's going on the farm. I love to do that as well, because I'm not able to be up there all the time. And then thank you very much for your time.